Welcome to Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, a podcast that illuminates real solutions to common problems within the parking industry. I'm your host, Brian Wolff, CEO of Parker Technology, and in each episode, I'll introduce you to real parking pros that will bring their own tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. Okay, on the show today is Gabe Mendez, PTMP, and Director of Transportation Operations at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So Gabe Mendez, PTMP, has served as the Director of Transportation Operations at the University of Wisconsin-Madison since August of 2020. In this role, he oversees a broad portfolio that includes parking technology, field operations, construction and maintenance coordination, facility upkeep, capital projects, the university fleet and garage, and strategic planning initiatives for the department. With a career spanning over 2 decades, Gabe has been active in the parking, transportation, and mobility industry since 2001, bringing experience from the commercial, municipal, and academic sectors. Gabe is also a dedicated contributor to the industry through leadership and volunteer roles in several professional organizations. He's an active member of the newly established Midwest Parking and Mobility Association and previously served as a board member and chair of the Southwest Parking and Transportation Committee. He currently sits on the board of directors for the International Parking and Mobility Institute, better known as IPMI, and contributes to both the Conference Program Committee and the Smart Mobility Transportation Task Force. In addition to his professional responsibilities, Gabe recently served on the City of Madison's Planning Commission and Joint Area Campus Committees, further demonstrating his commitment to community engagement and urban development. Gabe, welcome to Harder Than It Looks.
Thank you, Brian. Glad to be here.
It's going to be a great show. I can't wait to get to some of the questions and, more importantly, live up to my intro's promise of delivering tips and tricks for delivering a better parking experience. So, as you know, if you've listened to any of my podcasts, you know the thing I like to do first is I like to hand you the mic, ask you to go back as far as you want to go, and tell us the Gabe Mendez story. So the mic is yours. Tell us your story.
Thank you. So how I got into parking, huh?
Yeah, sure.
Go back way there.
Yeah.
Go way back into the last century. So I got into the industry in 2001, so 24 years ago, like you mentioned. But it started probably a year or two before as I was getting through college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, right? Become an adult. So was finishing up college, got an internship, and I was like, okay, I need a job. I need a real job. Back then, they had these things called newspapers with the thing called the want ads. So I actually had the paper open, just looking through, and I found a assistant manager position with Standard Parking, better known now as Metropolis. So way back then, applied for the job with one of my early mentors in parking, Ray Humbert. So applied, did not get the job. However, Ray liked me, so he took pity on a poor kid and offered me an event supervisor job. So did that for roughly a year or so before I slowly started moving up the ranks. So it being in 2001, I did start in the summer, and then we ran into 9/11, that fall, which is, horrible incident, but made for some interesting welcome into the parking world.
Yeah, I'll bet.
We also had the Arizona Diamondbacks, our baseball team. So they're right across the street from us. So we had their historic run into the World Series and winning the World Series. So got to experience all of that, from playoff games to opening up at midnight as they won a series, to open up tickets for the next series, for ticket sales. So all that was there when they won the World Series. So that was kind of my welcome to the industry, was doing commercial operations for Standard Parking. And then was there for 4 years, and then moved over to the Downtown Mesa Association. So it's a association that runs a bid for the city of Mesa in their downtown area. So I got to do that for a couple of years. Got to establish their special event program and their enforcement program for the downtown area. So that was fun. Also a whole different world in working downtown, so with associations. So board meetings and marketing and annual art fairs that we ran for the downtown area. So that was fun. It's fun, different, interesting. Parking is
Yeah.
never boring.
Never.
And then had the opportunity to go to ASU. ASU came up, got to work for Teresa Fletcher, who's another longtime mentor, and longtime boss, Belinda Alonso, Elton at the time. So got over there and kind of grew up there in the parking world. Started with Southwest Parking Association back then, SWAPA or SWIPTA now. Started doing that, and then got to move up the ranks there. Went from a manager all the way up to assistant director. So got to grow there. Thanks to everybody there. And then, also got to work some other fun events over there, different grand openings, different sporting events, all that fun stuff. And then opportunity here happened. So the opportunity happened here at UW-Madison. I knew Patrick, my current boss, since I got into parking. He was down at the university south of us in Arizona. We don't talk about it.
Ha.
It's one of those things we don't talk about.
Uh-huh. I'm familiar.
Yeah. So he brought me up here. So I've been here for, as you mentioned, 5 years tomorrow, I think. We moved here during COVID. So
yeah,
that was an
crazy,
interesting time to move across country.
For sure. I can't believe it's been 5 years. I mean, it feels like you just got there, which is incredible. Good for you. Okay, so did Ray bring you to ASU, or did you get Ray to ASU?
So interesting. Ray got to ASU before I did.
Okay.
So anybody who knows ASU back in 2008 to like 12, 15, ASU became the standard parking reunion area, so to speak. So Ray, I think was one of the first ones there. We had a couple of operation folks that came from standard parking. Our event manager came from standard parking. So, and then I came over after a couple of years. So let's say Ray was probably the second one there from standard parking back in the day, but he's brought in some of his people too, or he encouraged people to apply as they came up.
Yeah, and then obviously you said you knew Patrick because he worked at the university down south that you can't mention. One of the things that I love to be able to do is when I'm talking to prospects or or interviewing candidates, I always listen for things like, I worked for Joe, and then when Joe moved to a different job, he moved me. He called me and wanted me to come work for him because I always felt like Joe wouldn't go out of his way to move you across if you had not done a good job. And so it was sort of a proxy for knowing that somebody was being dragged along, as opposed to, when I asked the question, how did you get that job? They're like, well, I checked Indeed, or I was recruited away, or whatever. Right. Always a little pearl for interviewing, that when somebody gets dragged along, that's usually a pretty good indication that they've done good work. So that's fun. So you got sort of dragged along, and then obviously Patrick, he knew you for sure, right? So what led to you deciding to leave ASU and go to Madison in 2020?
I was ready to try to keep growing professionally in the parking and parking transportation mobility world, right? I wanted to grow. So the opportunity opened up here for the director of transportation operations, and being able to steer and take control of several areas was intriguing. So applied, knowing Patrick and I had talked about this job a year or two beforehand, and at that time it wasn't a good fit for me yet. So it was just timing. So kind of fell in my lap, the opportunity. And the funny thing with this is Tanera Teal Tate, who's now at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
Yeah.
She led my hiring committee. I applied and turned down her job at University of Memphis, or University of Tennessee, Memphis, like 2 years beforehand. So there's, the small world in parking and transportation.
Indeed. Small world.
So she and I knew some of the same people there that we were talking about as I came on board here.
That's pretty funny. Small world indeed. That's one of the things we love about parking, right? It's small. You can just about touch everybody if you've been here for 5 or 10 or 20 years. Okay, so then my next question is, how's the cold and snow treating you?
Just before I got on here, I told you a little saying that's up here. It ain't that bad.
It ain't that
Um,
bad.
yeah, kind of a saying up in Wisconsin. If you ask us about the weather, it's like, yeah, it's not that bad. Um, my wife would disagree with me on that one,
Yeah.
but really, it's not. It hasn't been bad. We've had one bad winter, bad in being a lot of snow and cold, but the last winter and the couple before that, they weren't that bad. It got cold. Don't get me wrong. When you get into the being an indie, once you get into the teens and the wet snow, it's miserable. But
Yeah.
I've
Yep.
adjusted to once it gets cold enough and we're beyond that's fine. I can go out to the gym in the morning in my shorts and my hoodie and it's fun, 2 degrees outside and hop in the truck, hop out the truck. Yeah. The
Yeah.
the winter or the summers are beautiful. You
Yeah.
take
For
that just
sure.
like back in Arizona, you take the winter and the fall because you deal with the summer. So
Yep.
stops with seasons here.
Yeah, that's great. I have had occasion to sip a beer on the back patio of the Union overlooking the lakes, which is gorgeous. So I would imagine in the summer and spring and summer and fall, it's awesome out there. Okay, so you mentioned that you wanted to grow professionally. My first question is, or one of my questions is, looking back on your first leadership challenge at parking, how did it shape your approach? Give us the situation, your first opportunity to lead, and how has it shaped who you are today as a leader?
I don't know if I had my first experience, but as the leader, but I think one of my earlier experiences of seeing a good and a bad leader that helped shape me is when the leader takes responsibility of the team's success
Mm,
and they don't speak of the team. That hit home. Um, and then when you see somebody take take the accolades, but then blame the team if something went wrong. Like, my team didn't perform well. We need to fix this. I think that has shaped me and how I try to approach being the leader. And it's the team that succeeds. And then if we fail as the leader, that was my responsibility. So it's my ownership to take that on to make sure the teams can succeed moving forward or rectify that. That that's to me that's how it is, right? The team succeeds and it's the leader who fails. Or it's the leader who has to maybe not fail so much as in, we have to learn from that mistake and how do we put the team in a position to succeed the next time.
yeah, that's a good one. That's a great one. And you obviously have really close personal experience with it because it sounds like you had a boss that was stepping in front of all the success and deflecting all of the failures, which is just a recipe for disaster. All right. So then you'd mentioned a couple of people that you called mentors. Like, go ahead and single somebody out. And what was it about their mentorship that was so important to you? And then again, how have you applied that thinking in your current role?
Yeah. Now I kind of mentioned Ray Humbert. So I think Ray was, that early mentor in Ray. Ray's very old school, but Ray is also, what you think of as that awesome uncle or grandpa, right? Like he's very inclusive, very caring. So like carrying that into work helps. Like, people want to feel acknowledged and feel seen. So, remembering people's birthdays when you can. I'm horrible at that, but trying to remember that. Remembering if you talk to them about their kids, about their animals, what's going on in their world. Just being able to have those engagements, create those personal relationships, I think is key, especially as you move up in the industry. Um, people put you in the ivory tower or up on the pedestal, whether they're warranted or not, and you got to kind of break those bubbles. I think Ray was pretty good about being that person on the ground, right? I didn't
Yeah.
move far enough. Turn my light back on over here. Sorry, some light up. Ray, and then I think one of the ones who kind of helped me in my leadership style was Teresa Fletcher. She was the director at ASU when I started there. So she and I had a lot of one-on-one discussions from a mentor-mentee perspective on asking her questions on different leadership styles, how to address things, which was great. She was very, very blunt and forthcoming. So I think early on, those are two really great mentors I had. I For the longest time I still was able to contact Teresa when she left to move back to Chicago. So which is awesome to be able to ask her questions. I think I've also learned just from peers and friends, like being able to talk to folks, in the industry, coworkers like JC over at ASU, or just folks within the industry, right? Being able to call them up and ask them questions is one of the great things about, as you mentioned, we talked about the small world in parking, is being able to talk to people about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've found parking people to be, particularly in the university space, because it's not really competitive. Everybody is pretty eager to help, to jump in and have an opinion about, helping you solve a problem, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to take a half a step back. I probably should have gotten to this before. So tell us a little bit about the size of your organization. Obviously, in the intro, you've got a big job. You've got a lot of things to do. How big is your team?
Sure. So, we'll do the numbers, and I think that was puts into perspective. So here at UW-Madison, we're roughly 75,000, so faculty, staff, students, and we also have another 8,000 hospital employees on our campus for our hospital associate. So for that 75,000 folks that come to campus, we have 13,000 parking spaces. So yeah, but we have 15,000 bike parking spaces. So biking in this community is very big, so that helps a lot. And then Madison's roughly 300,000 people. So we're a medium-sized town, decent-sized Midwest town. So those numbers kind of help put in perspective. We have just under or right at 100 FTE. I think on my side of the house, I have about 60 of those who work in each of those areas you mentioned. So we have a small group of 4 that kind of runs our construction and maintenance groups. So that team oversees all of the maintenance, the upkeep of our parking facilities. Yeah, make sure we don't have snow that causes collapses or anything like that, structural issues. So they address that, as well as all of our transportation engineering efforts for campus, and the enforcement and maintenance side of the house, and our field services. So that group does all of our enforcement, all of our blocking spaces. They do the heavy cleaning of our garages, power washing, sweeping, that kind of fun stuff, cleaning up messes nobody else wants to clean up. And then we have our booths and dispatch. So the group that runs the garages, making sure people get in and out, get directions. We staff that 24/7 minus holidays. So that group is here 350 days of the year. And then the last group I have the privilege to lead is our campus fleet vehicle services. So we, in some form or fashion, roughly 800 to 900 vehicles on campus throughout the year. Whether we're working on them, we're processing payments. We have a mortal pool of about 80 vehicles that get that daily rentals. We do some long-term leasing for departments who don't have the capital to be able to buy a new car every year or whatever. So we do that. At least we fund it and lease it to them. So we have that group as well.
Excellent. Okay, so I had Ross Allenson on the show, and he was talking about a story about maybe it wasn't Ross. Sorry, Ross. I might have gotten the wrong person. Anyway, it was someone who took a university vehicle and then parked it in a spot and didn't pay for parking and got a ticket. And their boss had to remind them that even though you've got a university vehicle, you have to pay for parking. Is that the case at Wisconsin too?
Yep. Every vehicle has a parking permit for their location. We have some different programs for kind of our physical plant fleet on how we permit them and stuff. But yeah, everybody pays for parking here. Yeah, as most people will know, maintaining a parking space is not cheap or free.
Yeah.
So we still have to maintain it no matter what.
Yep. Well, it's one of the eurekas I had for sure when I got in parking almost 10 years ago. Of course, everyone thinks about parking as how hard could it be, and maintenance of concrete and asphalt and all of that never even occurred to me. But of course, salt, especially salt, is really corrosive. You gotta that's and in addition to paying people to help you park, you got to take care of the equipment as well. Makes perfect sense. Okay, so in your job description now, do you have special events or is that someone else?
So that's under Corinne, who's our director of parking operations. So she has that right now.
Okay.
But we work collaboratively as a group. So she and her team help lead our event parking efforts, but then um, the team that I help manage, they do a lot of the field support, right? So enforcement, like I said, we have the garage, so maintaining the gates, make sure those are going up and down what we need them to. So, I mean, between the two of us, most of our group is involved in event day parking.
Yeah. So tell me, what are the unique challenges of doing event parking at UW-Madison?
I kind of mentioned earlier about it being kind of a smaller Midwestern town. I think the challenge is coming from a big city, from a large town like Tempe, Phoenix, is 8, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we had a huge amount of TNC, so Uber Lyft. So that was a big thing. We had hundreds for football games every Saturday, right? Here, that's not that big of a thing. We don't have a whole lot. We don't have a huge market for Uber and Lyft here in Madison. So people have to drive. But unique to Wisconsin is a lot of our local sports bars and establishments do buses. So they will do essentially party buses that come from those bars and restaurants, and they'll bus in 40 or 50 people on one of those. So that helps with not having, we have a 75,000 capacity stadium, not all of those people are driving. So just a different approach to get people here. Our downtown's fairly close. So our downtown City of Madison partners park a lot of people. People walk up State Street to get some brats or go to the terrace, like you mentioned, have a few drinks, and then make their way to the stadium. So the large venue, but a smaller town mentality. It's a little
Yeah.
bit different.
Yeah, that's great. So one of my fondest memories, I had an occasion to be in Wisconsin. I was dating a woman there that was going to med school. This was 35 years ago. And we went to a baseball game. We went to a Wisconsin baseball game, and one of the fraternities was serving beer out of their trunk, out of a keg. So now I'm not sure that goes on anymore in 2025 or 2024, but it was quite a unique experience in Wisconsin to have a beer out of a trunk at a baseball game. It was fun.
Well, we don't have UW men baseball any longer, so that opportunity is no longer here.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yep. But we do a pretty good tailgate community here, so
Yeah,
you can come by and get a spotted cow and a brat almost anywhere you walk by a parking lot. So
yeah.
you can still get something, Brian.
And the fifth quarter
Yep.
is legendary down up there in Madtown.
Fifth quarter and jump around are two must sees and must experiences if you go to a football game.
No question. All right, so let's turn a little bit to like technology or innovation. What innovations or creative strategies has UW-Madison implemented for large events and or just for parking or transportation?
Sure. I mean, I know there's a lot of technology out there, and I'm sure you've got plenty of guests talking about different ones. I think one of the big things that we've leaned into here is using ArcGIS for our mapping, to be able to use that to create event maps, to do some geospatial analysis for parking demand needs and such like that. I think that's a big thing that we've leaned into here from a day-to-day and event parking. From event parking, I wouldn't say we've leaned too much into new technology or anything different. We've leaned into going cashless for events, moving to the digital platform for season passes and day of or single game passes. So we're leaning into that more and more now. One of the benefits we have is we have 2 transportation engineers on our staff. So being able to pick their brains and use their expertise for traffic and detours and stuff like that is big. Getting their engineering heads into things helps a lot.
Yeah. There's no question everybody's coming to the game at a different time. Although with tailgaters, they probably get there early, which helps. But then, of course, after the fifth quarter, they're all out of there, and moving traffic is really tough, especially if you're that close to the main city of Madison. So, any particular tips or tricks there?
I, I would say the fifth quarter helps us so much in it. It helps keep people in the stadium. So it helps meter kind of our streets from a pedestrian and vehicle standpoint. So you have a number of fans that stay for that last 10, 12 minutes of the band, to be able to experience that. So others get to leave, walk to the downtown area, State Street, get out of the parking lots, and the rest can leave, 10, 15 minutes later. So it helps. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the great benefits of the fifth quarter.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So any common mistakes organizations make around event parking that you've learned from over the years? Again, back to sort of the tips and tricks piece to it.
Yeah. I think not enough signage, too much signage, and relying too much on signage. I think signage is a big one, right? You
Yeah.
need to have signage. You need to be able to tell people how much it costs, what's open. I'm guilty of this too, though, is people don't read signs. Yeah, especially if there's too many signs. Like
Yeah.
people don't read those. So you have to be strategic about that, and make sure they're in the right spots so people can see them where they need to, right? You don't want to put a $5 sign at the street and it's a quarter of a mile to get to the front of the parking lot. They're not going to remember how much it is. So you have to
Yeah.
make sure you have those in the right spots.
Yep.
And then
Okay.
you also have pedestrian and vehicle signs, right? There's two different messages. So making sure where you want people to walk, you're directing them that way. So I think that's a big thing, is not having enough, the right amount, or too much signage. Fine. It's a balancing act with that.
Yeah. And anybody do it particularly well, or have you got experiences where it didn't go well?
I would say everywhere that I've been to that that there's a parking professional that is running the parking, they do it well.
Yeah.
There's, smaller, even bigger venues where the security company is running it or the event management team's running it. You can see where they're not thinking about the bigger picture. So I think that's a great benefit of having a parking professional. I would say one thing too is a big thing where most people mess up on is the egress. So what happens after the event?
Right.
A lot of event parking operations, we've done this as well, is you sell your parking, the game or event starts, you walk away. Don't really worry about it, right? Well, now you have to get all those people out that you just parked. So
Yeah.
making sure that there's an egress plan is huge.
Yep. I would say that is the egress is the thing, right? And when it's handled well, we probably all take it for granted because we get out. But when it's not handled well, I've probably told the story on this podcast before. I was in Buffalo with one of my dear friends, Rick Sarah, having dinner, and we were at a restaurant that was on a peninsula, and there was a concert venue between us and the highway. And we stayed a little too long at the restaurant, and we exited right when a T-Pain concert was getting out. We ended up in that parking lot for 2 hours waiting to get out. It was bedlam. And I think about it, I'm not sure we saw a soul directing traffic or police or anything. It was not good. So I totally agree with you. That's a big one. Don't walk away once all the money's collected. You got to get people out of there too. That's part of the experience, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, so that leads me to sort of the next question, and talk about balancing operational efficiency with customer experience. How do you guys think about it there?
I think this kind of goes with it, right? My boss, Patrick, we were talking with the group about something, and we don't want the customer experience or what we can do for them be dictated by how hard or easy it is for us to do. Definitely we're going to take that into mind, but like if there's a really great project process, permit offering, whatever that is that we can do that's going to help meet the need, help increase the customer experience, let's do it. But let's figure it out how to sustain it, right? Like we don't want to make an 85-step process that we have to do every year 85 steps. The first year, maybe 2 is fine, but let's get it going, and then let's figure out how to make it efficient and user friendly for us. We want our staff to be happy, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to increase the customer experience at the detriment of the staff. We're going to keep that in mind, but it should be customer first, staff shortly right behind them. And then ideally any of those inefficiencies and workflows that need to get addressed, readdress those. You can continuously address them as well. It shouldn't be a one and done.
Yeah, that's great. And do you have any particular stories about something you guys designed that worked well? I love the concept of just because it's hard, we shouldn't do it. Love that.
Here we're working on a few things. They haven't rolled out quite yet, I think. I know at ASU, one of the things we did that was permit renewals, was figuring out how to automatically renew permits for faculty and staff. So it was a very labor intensive and time consuming on our end to be able to do that, but the customers loved it. So it was working out the kinks over a couple of years to get to a point where our IT staff essentially could set up renewals in a day and be done with it for the year. So that was one of those things where it was great for the customer, it was hard for us, but we worked on improving the process to get it so that it was good for both.
Yeah, great. That makes perfect sense. So do you think, shifting gears just a little bit, do you think universities are leading or lagging when it comes to smart mobility technology?
I would say we're probably in the passenger seat, maybe not driving a lot of
Do
the
you think
technology.
cities are driving a lot of it?
What I think it depends what you're looking at, right? So the smart city initiative over the last 15, 20 years has led to a lot of technology initiatives and different program offerings in the city, in the larger cities that participated. I think the private operators and commercial operators, technology partners, they're leading the technology. You know, the folks with private money can tend to use it a little bit more freely and test things out, than rather than those of us with state or government money. But at the same time, we're not afraid to get on that cutting edge, right? We don't want to be the bleeding edge, but we definitely want to be on the cutting edge, or at least close enough that we can get there pretty quickly. So I would say private operators are probably, from an operating standpoint, probably leading the way. But I think cities and universities are pretty close. I
Yeah.
think most of my peers are just as leveraging technology just as much as we are, if not more.
Yeah. Fast followers, particularly if
Yeah.
you got something that works, right?
Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier when we talked about is we're a sharing community. So we all talk to each other and we all steal from each other freely and give freely. So something works for one university, we hear about it, we're going to reach right out to them and, okay, how do you do this? How can we make it happen?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Okay. All right. Are there any issues in the industry, do you think, that aren't getting enough attention? Are there challenges you're facing that people just aren't talking about it?
Yeah. I think we're not there yet here at UW, but I think a couple of things are succession planning. And then from the HR world is hiring and retaining people. So succession planning, I don't think we're trying to do it here. We're going through an org review right now, is setting up the organization so folks can hopefully move up, or, there's not one person who's doing 10 different things that they leave. And now you're like, oh, crap, who's going to do this work now?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing, especially for for this day and age where a lot of the baby boomers and my generation are at that age ready to retire or looking for that, easy gig in Arizona where it's warm all year long. So I think that's a big thing. I think from an HR perspective, one of the challenges is hiring people. So not necessarily getting people to apply for the jobs, but it's how do we post the job, right? Like how do we make it so people want to apply and can apply? I think there's a lot of things that we're probably a little behind on from as an industry. Hopefully we're catching up on, things such as, post the salary for a job. Like why make somebody guess if a job is going to pay what they need to make sure the qualifications matter. Does everybody need a college degree? Does everybody need 20 years of parking experience for a job? Probably not. Or both, right? You don't need both. I think those are two big things. One of the things that's kind of hit recently with some of our postings is we required a cover letter for every job posting. May not need a booth cashier to give you a cover letter, or a porter or a valet. They have a resume. You should be able to talk with them.
Yeah.
If you can hire them or not, they don't have to. Why do you have to have a cover letter or references? Yeah. Do you need them? Yeah. That's a big thing I've seen in the LinkedIn world is even references are going away, like as a standard. Like, I'm not going to put somebody who hates me on the as a reference, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that is, and then from a retention standpoint is being able to pay people what they're worth and what their value is, um, within the confines of, especially in higher ed and state like government work. We're bound by, you can only give somebody a 1% raise, or they get a new job, you only get 2% or whatever. But I can hire somebody off the street, and Brian has the same experience. I can give Brian $20,000 more than what Gabe can make. Because it's policy, right? Like, I think those are
Yeah.
things that
Yeah.
hamper us,
Yeah.
that
For
are
sure.
hard for all of us.
Yeah. That there's no question. It's funny. I was talking to my sister. Her son is a software developer, and I won't say the company, but they're struggling with the same thing where he's 5 years out of school and they're hiring college grads right at his range. And it's quite frustrating for the existing employees. And then I would imagine for you, it makes the job even harder from a succession planning perspective, because people have to leave to get raises, which is not particularly good. So is UW-Madison's parking operation self-funded, or how does that work? Or do you have to give your money back to Wisconsin, or is that a trade
Yeah,
secret?
Nope. So we are a self-funded auxiliary, 100%. So we have to generate all of our program fees to cover our expenses. We also have a benefit for the most part. Sometimes it's a hindrance, but a benefit of, by state statute, our money can only be used for transportation related items and initiatives.
Okay.
So fortunately for us, we have $1 million in the bank. The president, chancellor can't take that money to go pay for something. By state law, it's protected.
Okay. All right. That's good. All right. So coming around the bend here, looking ahead, what does your job look like in 5 to 10 years? What does a parking director at a university's job look like in 5 to 10 years? Is it going to change a lot, or will it change a lot? What do you think?
5 to 10 years. I think, kind of as the industry has done it, I think we're moving away from parking only, transportation only. That's moving more into that multimodal mobility world where there's not just one thing, right? Like, we're going to have multiple facets to the program that we're managing that are going to be changing. We're still going to need to get people to campus, or getting people access to campus. I think that's a big thing. What I've seen, not so much here, but what I've seen across the nation, and probably a little bit here foreshadowing, is you start to have buildings or property across your region that you're managing that part from the forward. Shifting from just knowing how to park cars, collect cash, into real estate, property management.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to manage leases. You need to learn how to coordinate vendors, do your snow removal, or work with the landscaping company that's not your university grounds group to do stuff. I think that's a big change that I've seen, that I've been able to experience here and at ASU, is having that relationship and having that knowledge, and getting into the quasi commercial side. Like, there's some leases and parking management agreements that we're working on. So we're running some of these garage that they paid for, or we're leasing parking from someplace else so we can park folks at. So
Yeah.
it's not just sell a permit, park the car, give a ticket type of thing. It's having all these different business skills that you need.
That's really encouraging. I would think that, sharing that with somebody coming into the parking industry, knowing that they're going to get more well-rounded as the industry sort of transforms and as the needs get greater because it's getting harder to find people, right? And so you sort of do some cross training. I know ASU, maybe before you left or just after you left, they got big time into managing parking for other commercial entities around the campus just because they had expertise and it made perfect sense. So it sounds like
Yeah,
you're
I
doing
think
some
I
of
got
that.
to write the first two parking management agreements there for outright those. So
Okay. So you had
yeah,
experience.
yeah. And JC's just taking it, trying to rule the world down there.
Well, I told somebody the other day, I mean, I think ASU has been a customer now, for almost 8 or 9 years. And the difference between downtown Tempe or Tempe and today versus 8 years ago is, if you drop me in the middle of that place today, without having been there just a year ago, I would not have known where I was. It's incredible. Empty lots became hotels, and it was the progress out there was awesome. It's really fun to see. All right. So before we get to the lightning round, what haven't I asked you that you think is important to share with my vast parking audience?
Um, I thought that was going to be one of the easier questions than your lightning round for what I was prepared for.
I can't wait. It's coming, and I am so glad that you're prepared, Courtney. Thank you for preparing Gabe for that.
That won't mean I'll remember what I prepared. So I think something I would want to share with folks is probably learn everything you can about everything. I think it's not like we were just talking about. It's not just parking anymore.
Yeah.
There's all these things that, you know, if I had paid more attention in college to economics and business and writing a lot of proposals, a lot of writing letters up to leadership that you didn't think you'd have to do when you were running a parking garage back in the day for one of the operators. It's those things that if I paid more attention to some of that stuff, and thought of as I was coming up in the world, that this is a business rather than just a fun job. You get paid to do this. That's coming up in the world. I think coming up in the parking and mobility world, that's a big thing.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And I think the universities the good ones are starting to realize that you have to give the students some practical experience to be able to truly understand how to apply what they're learning. Like English writing is a perfect example. Like, give me some real world examples of where I have to write an email that doesn't have tone in it or that has punctuation. Because I'm told that my generation uses perfect punctuation and the generations after me view that as being aggressive when I use punctuation. I'm like, okay, that's news. So now I'm being aggressive and particularly poignant when I use a period or an exclamation point. So pretty funny stuff. All good stuff. All right, we're getting to the fun part now. Let's head to the lightning round. So the first question, Gabe, what phrase are you known for?
I would say for work, it's probably, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to give staff the opportunity if I'm saying something wrong for them to say, nope, that's wrong. Here's what it is. I
Okay.
don't want them to have to just sit there and be like, oh, he just said the wrong thing. So I would say
Right.
for here.
Correct me if I'm wrong. All right. But sounds like you had a personal one too.
Personal one is my wife would hate this one, but I think right now this is the way.
This is the
part
way.
of my wedding vows.
This is the way. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Star
I
Wars
got
reference
two.
for those.
Yeah. That's awesome. I got two from you. Thank you for preparing.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, what's the hardest thing you've ever done in life?
I don't know. I would say one of the hardest things in my professional life has been firing somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the hardest one. Moving across country is probably the second hardest one
Yeah.
of the two.
Okay. So that's parking. What about in life? Give us a little peek behind the curtain. Gabe Mendez's life.
Honestly, it was moving across country. All of my
Okay.
family's in Arizona.
Yeah.
All of my wife, all of our friends are in Arizona. So basically moving to a place where I knew two people.
Well, good for you. And hopefully it's worked out. I mean, the Midwest, you probably have you ever lived in the Midwest before?
No, born and raised in Arizona.
Okay. And so the Midwest people, they're super nice.
Yes.
Midwest hospitality is Midwest values. They're alive and well real. People really love it. So hopefully you love it too, and your wife is settling in. It's been 5 years, except for the snow, probably. I get it. Okay, so you mentioned firing people. Is there something else that's hard about your parking job?
Yeah, I think going with that, it's the being able to tell people when they have to do things they don't like without having to give them all information yet. Is there, there's some things that I may not know or I may not be able to share yet, but we have to do something that may not be favorable.
Yeah,
So it's trying to lead them through that. That's always hard. They want to know why, and sometimes can't tell you why yet.
yeah.
This is what we're doing.
Sometimes it's trust me. But to your point, then it's about, being a good boss and being empathetic and having built your bank account, your emotional bank account with them to the point where you can ask them to trust you, and they'll trust you because they know you and you know them. And there's been some grace and some, what's the word I'm looking for? You've built up some bandwidth to be able to ask them to trust you.
Yep. I think that goes to one of the things to try to live by from both professional and personal is integrity. If you don't have the integrity, you can't build the trust. If you,
Yep.
yeah, you don't mean what you say, don't say it.
Yep.
Because
I
it's
love
going to come
that.
back to bite you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the next question is, if you could wave your magic wand and fix anything in parking, what would it be?
Parking. Um, Customers would probably be the easy answer. I would say teaching people how to park properly. Like that would fix so many problems from a customer service perspective. Like
Yeah.
just making them understand why you have to park in the lines, why you have to pay for parking. What does it mean when you don't?
Yeah. Any good stories on that front? There has to be stories.
Yeah, I mean, I probably don't have as many as other people, but trying to relate to somebody why them parking in a accessible stall at your children's hospital really matters.
Yeah.
Like I can't get this person who's bringing their child in for a cancer treatment in their wheelchair because you took the last spot that they could have. You don't have a placard. It's like that type of thing, or you can't block a fire hydrant because now the fire department can't get to that hydrant. It's trying to teach them common sense, but
Yeah. Common sense and wipe a little of the entitlement away.
yep.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're not parking cars, what do you do for fun?
Uh, we just got into Legos. Been doing that a little bit, having some fun with Lego. But I would say for anybody who's friends with me on social media, is the ex girlfriend and I do a lot of traveling around the region, concerts, trying new experiences. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things we enjoy doing.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I'm trying to think. You turned me on to a couple of obscure bands. I can't remember who they were. They were good. We were down in, I think when last time we were at ASU together, that was probably 6 years ago. You were reeling off some of these lesser known artists. So
Yeah,
fun.
do a lot of that up here. A lot of music, a lot of festivals, a lot of small regional artists and bands. So it's fun. I like doing
Yeah,
that.
that's great. Okay. So last question here. What are you most proud of?
I think I'm probably most proud of from a personal perspective is the relationship and the life my wife and I have built here. So I think that, like we we're just talking about all the fun stuff we get to do. I think professionally is the trust that I've built with the team
Yeah.
for them to be able to know they can come to me with something or there's a challenge that I'm going to work on trying to get that resolved for them. They may not see it, they may not know it until the end, but that it's not just going to come and land on my plate and just get pushed to the side. Like
Yeah.
we're going to work to a resolution together that we may not all agree on, but at least we'll work towards something and
Yeah. I love
tell them
that.
what I can why.
Yeah. I love that. No faster way to build bonds than when people bring you something and you find a way to get something done. You can't always get all the way there, but certainly meeting them in the middle and or them just knowing that you took up the cause is builds really strong professional bonds. So I love that answer. That's a good answer. Appreciate that. Okay. Well, listen, it's been great as expected. You gave me lots of pearls. So how can people reach you if they want to get a hold of you and if they want to hear more from Gabe Mendez?
Sure. So here at work, they can reach me at gabe.mendez at wisc.edu. I'm on LinkedIn, on most of the social media. So always reach out if they know you and they're one of your millions of followers, Brian. They can always ask for my information and you pass them along and happy to chat.
Okay, that's great. I will make sure that all my millions of followers, if anybody needs to get a hold of Gabe Mendez, I got you for sure. That's great.
Or Courtney's followers,
Yeah, that's right. Or Courtney's followers, more accurately. Our producer extraordinaire, she does an awesome job. All right, Gabe, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I wish you well going into the fall and the football season. I don't think Michigan plays Wisconsin, and so that's
I
probably
think we do, but I don't remember. We should, but if not,
maybe
we
we
won't
do.
talk that week.
Okay, we won't talk that week, but all the other times I'll be a big Wisconsin fan, especially when you're playing Ohio State. Speaking of schools down south. So thanks for joining me, and good luck during football season and all through the winter. It's been great
All
talking
right,
to you.
thank you, sir.
That's a wrap on this episode of Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, presented by Parker Technology. Please leave us a review if you liked what you heard. Make sure you tune in next month as we continue to uncover tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. Bye for now.